This is a show, with no particular niche, baby. It's always about hanging out. Maybe we'll laugh at some stuff, maybe we'll learn something new, but it's always about hanging out, me and you. Hi, hello, and welcome to That Thing with James, a podcast about nothing in particular. I'm your host, James. What's up? Glad to see ya. Maybe it's your first time here. Yo, hey. I hope you're doing well. I hope you enjoy what is about to unfold. I hope you derive some kind of knowledge and humor out of what you are about to experience, because today we're talking about a few topics that I hold closely and dearly to my heart. I'm talking communism, aliens, and nuclear warfare, baby. My three favorite topics. They're not really like my three favorite topics. I don't sit around thinking about them all day, but today we're getting into a subject that relates to those three things, and I find it immensely humorous and interesting. Man, people are so fucking interesting, and so is history. Today we're talking about Posadism. Yes, if you don't know what that is, maybe you might be in for a bit of a ride. I'm no expert on the matter. I'm going to say it right now. I'm not an expert in this matter. I've read articles here and there over the years. I've not read a full book about it. I don't even fully comprehend what Trotsky is about, nor why people in communist circles rag on Trotsky and Trotskyites so much. I think maybe they feel like Trotskyism is a bit counterproductive to the Rev. Whatever the case, I'm not an expert in this matter, but regardless, we're going to get into some niche, interesting bits of history today, world history. Now, before we get into that, some quick business. If you're returning, good to see you. Glad you made it back. And again, if you're new, hi, welcome. This show is about nothing in particular, as I mentioned in the song. And this has no particular niche, although today we are talking about a very niche topic. This show is not devoted solely to said niche topic. This show is mostly just about whatever piques my interest at the time I sit down to record. Now, speaking of recording, I release episodes once every 2 weeks. Now, I used to do one new episodes every single week. And I say episodes plural because, well, this is a free episode. And when I'm done recording this episode, I will then, after letting the fucking water is running. Sorry, if you're hearing pipes running, terrible timing. Where was I going? This is a free episode. And after I'm done recording this, I will charge my camera. So then I can record the bonus episode. I have a bunch of bonus episodes, which I will touch on in a minute. But yeah, I used to do new episodes every single week on top of everything else. And I got majorly burned out, and I was already burned out. I won't get into my reasoning for why I did the things I did, but I will tell you now that me putting out a new episode every other week, or episodes every other week, is a lot better for my mental and physical health, and thus it's a lot better for this show. So hopefully, there you go. That's what you have to look forward to. Now, I did mention bonus episodes. I have over 90. I'm almost to 100 bonus episodes at patreon.com/ThatThingWithJames. To those of you who already are patrons, thank you so much for your support. You rock. I hold a special place for you in my heart, right next to psychic talking dolphins, which kind of relates to today's topic. I don't just say that for no reason. And if you're not already a member, consider becoming one. You get access to all the 90 plus bonus episodes and some other content that I've put on there. There are different perks with the different tiers available, but base entrance is $5. Only $5 will get you 30 days of access to a wealth of bonus episodes about all sorts of stuff throughout the years that I've been doing bonus episodes. I think this is year 3, maybe, of me doing bonus episodes. So yeah, if you want access to that and the peace of mind of knowing that you're helping to support an independent creator, an independent artiste, I'm talking about myself here, become a member today at patreon.com/ThatThingWithJames. That is patreon.com/ThatThingWithJames. And again, if you're already a patron, thank you so much. The link to that is written in the episode description, as are the links to my socials, my show email, and the subreddit for this show. Let's see. That's it for the business stuff. Yeah. Posadas. Today we're talking about Posadism, created by Juan Posadas, which is the pseudonym, the nom de plume of a guy. I think he was like Italian and Argentinian ancestry. Well, I heard about this several years ago on various podcasts, people cracking jokes about Posadism and aliens, and I just remembered it a few days ago, and I thought that was pretty damn funny. Let's just get into it. Let's get into it, all right? Enough rambling. So, as with any kind of leftist topic, it's a little difficult. It's a really high barrier of entry because historically, there are a lot of nerds who are not great at simplifying and distilling information. And there are reasons why. However, there are also, I would argue, even more pressing reasons why they should perhaps help simplify things a bit. And it's a lot simpler to understand a lot of leftist thought and theory now than it was even 5 years ago. But let's get into it. Let's start here at the subreddit r/communism101. This is an older post. I can't even read the username. It's a bunch of numbers and underscores. They ask, what is Posadism? Exactly. I hope I'm saying it right. Posadism. I think it's Posada. That sounds like the right pronunciation. What is Posadism exactly? Would you actually believe in it? Here's one from 9ja Vialecht 4 years ago, replied, long story short, nuclear wars will erupt all over the world, toppling capitalism and causing a new communism to dawn, a new communist world to dawn. This is where it gets sketchy as fuck. The nuclear blasts will be heard through space, and alien species will come to Earth to help rebuild our world. Now, if you're a Star Trek fan, that may sound very familiar. Well, because that's the history of Star Trek. World War III broke out, nuclear warfare happened, and then the Vulcans came to Earth shortly thereafter because there was like an acceleration in developing technologies, including space technology, space exploration technology on Earth. So we got to a certain point in technology, in the history of Star Trek. Humanity got to the point where we reached a certain point in technological advancement that an advanced alien species said, okay, now they're ready for contact with us. Now they're ready for first contact with us. And so that's where the Vulcans, Spock, came to Earth and the rest is a great story up until, I'd say Voyager was, it's pretty good. And then it kind of falls apart after Voyager. Regardless, let's keep reading this. An alien species will come to Earth to help rebuild our world. This is Posadism I'm reading here. They will share their alien technologies. According to the founder of Posadism, the aliens must be communist because in no other way can they have achieved such highly developed technology. Now, there's some bits about Posadism that I kind of jive with better. Maybe 2 or 3 episodes ago, I covered the dark forest hypothesis, which comes from the 3 body problem series, which was a really grim and I would say rather reactionary view of a speculative view of alien life forms and the relationships between us and other intelligent species out in space. So the quick rundown is we should not be reaching out because they are the hunters and we are the hunted, lost in a dark forest. You don't want to light a torch or call out when you're lost in a dark forest because hungry wolves will come find you. That's essentially the dark forest hypothesis. Posadism is more like mine, where I think it goes way beyond dark forest hypothesis. Dark forest is a very, I would say, human, and I mean human in terms of limited scope, limited field of vision idea. I would say if there are indeed other intelligent species out there, and this isn't a tinfoil hat show, okay, I'm not trying to say that, but I am saying that I am open to, and personally I find more likely the idea that if there are indeed other species out there, and if we did indeed make contact with them, they would probably function on frameworks, a certain framework that humans wouldn't necessarily be able to comprehend, at least not immediately. I feel like dark forest hypothesis is really projecting a fearful reactionary attitude, human feeling onto a topic that I believe deserves a far, far, far broader scope. Okay, so here's another response to this Reddit question. Qualino 4 years ago says, fun fact, allegedly Star Trek had a Posadist timeline. There's an apocryphal story that Roddenberry read some Posadist literature at some point, and the timeline does have some passing similarities. I wouldn't even call it passing similarities. I'd call it pretty fucking close similarities. Mm-hmm. And then there's another one here from the Dash Rendar saying, it's mostly a joke / meme. The number of unironic Posadists is probably pretty small. It's worth noting that it was taken more seriously in the 1960s when nuclear war seemed unavoidable, and the weirder parts of the ideology were yet to be tacked on. Shorthand version is that communist Trotskyist thinker Juan Posadas saw a path to socialism through nuclear war. By nuking most of the world's resources, the remaining scarcity would be so severe that the only way for the remaining humans to survive would be to implement socialism. I'd also want to note that I've been replaying the Fallout games. I'm replaying Fallout 4 and New Vegas right now. Plus, I actually enjoyed the series. I'd say a good 1/2 or 2/3 of the season was really good. And as a whole, WHOLE, it was a pretty good video game adaptation. You don't see that every day. Back to this. Posadis's views would get weirder in the late 60s as failing the success of nuclear war, humanity would also reach out to aliens and their UFOs, having a more advanced society. I'm not going to read any more on this. Instead, we're going to jump over to Wikipedia. Not the best resource, but it's the best one I could find for this to really compress and compile what the hell Posadism is. And before we get into it, let me take a sip of water real quick. I'm getting a little frothy. All right, let's get into it. The Fourth International Posadist is a Trotskyist international organization. It was founded in 1962 by J. Posadas, who had been the leader of the Latin American Bureau of the Fourth International in the 1950s and of the Fourth International's section, in Argentina. Between their split from the International Secretariat of the Fourth International in 1962 and Posadas' death in 1981, Posadists developed a strain of communism that included several fringe ideas, which brought them into conflict with more mainstream left-wing groups. Posadism attempts to introduce elements of ufology into Marxist thought, arguing that only communism can allow the development of interplanetary travel. They concluded that visiting aliens from other planets must live in highly advanced communist societies and are bound to help Earth-based communists with bringing about the world revolution. Again, sounds quite a lot like Star Trek. History, origins. When the Fourth International, or FI, split in 1953, Posadas and his followers sided with Michel Pablo and the International Secretariat of the Fourth International, the ISFI. The Posadists began quarreling with the majority of the ISFI in 1959 over the question of nuclear war, which Posadas, being a proponent, as he claimed, it would destroy capitalism and clear the way for socialism. The Posadists finally split with the ISFI in 1962 to form the Fourth International Posadist. The group initially had a following in several countries, particularly among railway workers in Cuba, tin workers in Bolivia, and farm workers in Brazil. There was a significant Posadist group in Cuba. Posadist guerrillas fought alongside Castro and Che Guevara in the 1959 revolution. Yes, good stuff. When the Posadists split from the Fourth International in 1962, they took the Cuban section with them, meaning no other Trotskyist group was represented in Cuba in the 1960s. The Posadist group was accused by Soviet-friendly forces in Cuba of arguing that the Cuban government should forcibly expel the American military base at Guantanamo Bay and of trying to organize workers in the town of Guantanamo to march on the nearby military base. That was taken as a justification by the government for imposing a ban on them. Castro denounced their influence as pestilential in the Tricontinental Conference held in January 1966. Cuban Posadists went on to claim that Castro had Guevara killed when, it turned out, he was actually in Bolivia fighting with the guerrilla movement there. Conversely, after Guevara was executed by Bolivian authorities, Posadas claimed in 1967 that Che Guevara was not actually dead, but was being kept in prison by Castro's government. A lot of infighting. Who would have thought? Infighting leftists. By 1968, a Posadist movement began to develop in Europe. However, the ufology elements of the movement caused it to fail to garner much traction, decline, and resurgence. In the late 1960s, the Posadists became increasingly interested in UFOs, claiming that they were evidence of socialism on other planets. The organization soon began to wane in influence and membership, aided by an increasingly paranoid Posadas who expelled many of its members by 1975. And I want to reiterate, I am not an expert in this at all. This is new information for me, so possibly we're learning along the way. If you know more, write it in the comments respectfully. Be respectful, please, in the comments on my YouTube channel or email at the show email, which you can find written in the episode description. Onward. Posada's death in 1981 meant the virtual dissolution of the organization, with only a few isolated groups continuing to operate to the present day. In the United Kingdom, the Revolutionary Workers' Party, Trotskyist, was founded in 1963 by Posadist members of the Revolutionary Socialist League, and despite several schisms, again, infighting leftists, who'd have thunk, and a dwindling membership, it continued to publish its newspaper, Red Flag, until 2000. In recent years, as of 2018, interests in the Posadists, particularly in regard to their views in ufology, has increased. Several satirical and non-satirical neo-Posadist groups emerged on social media, making Posadas, quote, one of the most recognizable names in the history of Trotskyism, unquote. So let's get into the theories here. Posadist society. Posadists advocate for a society akin to those proposed by general Marxist theory. A proletarian revolution will destroy the bourgeois state, replacing it with a socialist state. Easy peasy. Let's keep going. Nuclear first strike. What? At the height of the Cold War, Posadas thought that nuclear war was inevitable. He asserted that the nuclear-armed socialist states should launch a preemptive nuclear attack that would destroy the nuclear capabilities of capitalist countries. Additionally, he believed that a nuclear catastrophe between the United States and USSR would spark the World Revolution. Posadas vocally opposed the Partial Test Ban Treaty signed in 1963 by the United States, the USSR, and the United Kingdom, believing that a nuclear war between the US and the USSR was inevitable and desirable. Say what? And would create the conditions for socialism, with the workers' states winning and resetting society. So, he said, during the height of the Cold War, I think that the bombs are going to go off regardless. And I think that it might be a good thing if they do, because it'll cause such dire circumstances that people will automatically form socialist structures within our interpersonal and communal relationships will automatically become socialist as a means of survival. That's what Juan Posadas was saying, essentially. That's what I'm getting from it, at least. Scientific progress. Posadas was highly interested in the way scientific advancement could improve human lives when used for the common good, rather than for profit. Yeah, okay. In an essay written entitled Childbearing in Space, The Confidence of Humanity and Socialism, published in 1978, he espoused his vision of a utopian future under the guidance of science. Quote, humanity feels pressed and oppressed by the straitjacket that imprisons science, for science is oppressed. The capitalist oppresses science by using it to kill people. When science is liberated, it will not be long. In only a few years, we will wipe out all of the problems, floods, hunger, and misery. All this could already be done, and it will not be long before we do. And when we do, everyone will be an architect, an engineer, a doctor, and the like. Unquote. Posadas, 1978. Again, sounds kind of like Star Trek. Even in The Next Generation, they mention how they're able to zap out tornadoes, prevent tornadoes from happening, prevent natural disasters from happening on Earth. They've eradicated hunger and all this sort of thing. Star Trek, man, maybe Gene Roddenberry, if he wasn't a Posadist, he at least drew a lot of inspiration from the thought. Let's keep reading. Posadas was also a supporter of space exploration by the former USSR and the People's Republic of China. He praised an alleged plan by the USSR to have a woman give birth in space, considering such endeavors the mark of an advanced society that is on the path of eliminating primal needs such as survival, security, and comfort. Quote, if we have already the audacity to envisage childbearing in space, it is because we feel part of a quest that transcends life on Earth. Unquote. Posadas. These views are in line with the more mainstream positions of Russian cosmism and transhumanism. Interesting stuff. And yeah, it's ripe, fertile soil for meme material. And it's also, I find it just interesting stuff to think about. You don't necessarily have to buy it or believe in it, but it's interesting to think about nonetheless, because what the fuck else are you going to do? If you're not fighting for the end of an ongoing genocide, that certainly takes up a lot of time, especially if you're being oppressed by the fucking jackbooted terrorists coming to beat up peaceful protesters who are demanding, human rights for other human beings, whom I am disgusted at how many people I know personally that I have seen regarding a certain very oppressed group of humans as being subhuman. People that I know that I never in a million years would have thought this have gone from inexcusably ignorant to how dare you say the kind of stuff you're saying right now. That is disgusting. I'm disgusted right now. But that's not what this episode is about. But I have a feeling you might know what I'm talking about. Let's keep reading. Ufology. And who knows? Who knows what's going to be happening by the time this episode comes out, because I'm recording this on Sunday, May 5th, and it doesn't come out for Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. 5 days from now, this episode comes out on Friday, I guess that would be May 10th. Don't quote me if I'm wrong. If I'm right, then quote me. But as of right now, at the time of this recording, it is Sunday, May 5th at 10:50 a.m. And let's keep reading about Posadas and ufology. Yes. Posadas was the author of a number of works with an unconventional slant, and towards the end of his life, he tried to create a synthesis of Trotskyism and ufology. His most prominent thesis from, let me make sure I didn't blow out the mic. Okay. Let me get a drink of water real quick. Hold on. Let's start from the top of this section. Ufology. Posadas was the author of a number of works with an unconventional slant, and toward the end of his life, he tried to create a synthesis of Trotskyism and ufology. His most prominent thesis from this perspective was the 1968 pamphlet, Flying Saucers and the Process of Matter and Energy, Science, the Revolution, and Working Class Struggle, and the Socialist Future of Mankind. I reiterate, leftists really need to get better at their brevity, at their wit, just saying. Which exposed many of the ideas associated today with Posadism. Here, Posadas claimed that while there is no proof of intelligent life elsewhere in the universe, the science of the time makes their existence likely. Furthermore, he claims that any extraterrestrials visiting Earth in flying saucers must come from a socially and scientifically advanced civilization to master interplanetary travel, and that such a civilization would have only come about in a post-capitalist world. I agree with that. Capitalism stymies innovation. Believing visiting aliens to be naturally nonviolent and only here to observe, Posadas, and that's right there, that sentiment that visiting aliens would be nonviolent and just here to observe and learn. That's what I was talking about at the beginning of the episode, where this is sort of an antithetical perspective to that proposed in the dark forest hypothesis. Let's keep reading. Believing visiting aliens to be naturally nonviolent and only here to observe, Posadas argues that humans must call on them to intervene in solving Earth's problems, namely, quote, to suppress poverty, hunger, unemployment, and war, to give everyone the means to live in dignity, and to lay the bases for human fraternity, unquote. The means to achieving this end remained within the mainstream Trotskyist and included ending capitalism as well as the bureaucracy of the workers' states and establishing a socialist society. Despite Posadas himself never publishing anything on the subject after 1968, ufology nonetheless became an important part of Posadism. After his death in 1981, some Posadists continued to explore the subject, notably Dante Minazzoli, Paul Scholz, and Werner Grundmann. Others, however, have distanced themselves from the more unconventional notions and have claimed that Posadas' interest in extraterrestrial life was a marginal point that was blown out of proportions. Member parties. The Fourth International Posadist claims the following parties. Okay, yeah, we don't need to read all that. Yada, yada, yada. So that's the end of the wiki article, and that's really the Cliff's Notes of a lot of research that would require you to read a lot of really long books. And I found some other articles. They're all pretty long, but this episode has gone on. I think we're near the end. I want to look up something real quick that I didn't think of until just now. So hang on just a second. It'll be just a little beep. Okay, I found a little bit. So Gene Roddenberry, the dude who invented Star Trek, he most definitely was a humanist. He never explicitly said, this is my ism. But he was definitely humanist, definitely influenced by a lot of socialism. Allegedly, according to his wife, he, jived, liked a lot of Maoist thought. And then, of course, there's Posadism. So Star Trek initially came out in 1966, and then the first pamphlet with ufology from Posadas came out, I think it was 1968. So pretty close. Maybe some similar ideas flying around at the same time, but there's undeniable similarities between Posadism and the history of Star Trek. As noted here on the r/complete anarchy from 5 years ago, Star Trek is literal Posadism. And then they write, after a period of increasing inequality, which, by the way, one of the best, I think it's a 2-parter episode. One of the best things in TV. A lot of great Rev stuff in the older Star Trek shows, by the way. And one of them being from Star Trek Deep Space Nine, having to deal with the Bell riots. Very, very fucking prescient. One of the reasons I really love sci-fi is it's very prescient for present day stuff. Anyway, in any period, really. Anyway, let's read this. Star Trek is literal Posadism after a period of increasing inequality, i.e. the Bell riots of 2024. Yeah, that's when it takes place. A nuclear third world war began from 2026 to 2053, following which aliens came from space in 2063. They gave us replicator technology, which eliminated scarcity. And by the launch of the Enterprise NX-01, humans were living in a socialist utopia. The voyage home even features sentient cetaceans, the humpback whales, not dolphins. So apparently, I guess there's a lot of link. I couldn't necessarily find it, but there's a lot of link between Posadism and dolphins. And there's some great history about research into humans trying to communicate with dolphins. There's a great drunk history episode about it. And you know what? I ought to make that my next free episode. I'll definitely do some reading about that. It's got a lot to do with dolphins, telepathic communication, and LSD, my 3 favorite topics. Some commenters. Too bad Vulcans won't actually come to save us IRL, so the next century humans will basically be reduced to some dirt farmers growing pigweed in a poisoned swamps of Alaska. Fallout, whatever. So here's a little bit more. What are the political influences of Gene Roddenberry and the Federation? This is from r/Daystrom Institute, posted 2 years ago. Hello, everyone. I was recommended to this location to ask this question. I have a question for all those scholars and experts of Star Trek. A few questions, actually. First, what's the political and or philosophical ideas and or writings that influenced Gene Roddenberry? Are there specific books or writings to which he subscribed and which he espoused? Edit. I heard that Gene Roddenberry was into Maoism. I don't know for sure. If I could get a citation, that would be appreciation. That's what they wrote. That would be appreciation. Second, what are the political and or philosophical ideas or writings that influenced or best describe the United Federation of Planets. Likewise, are there specific books or writings which the UFP believe in and espouse? For example, let's say if I was world building and I wanted to recreate the Federation faithfully, what would be the best political structure and or philosophy to represent that? Thank you, everyone. Top comment here is number one. If I remember correctly, Gene Roddenberry was a humanist. So too was Kurt Vonnegut. Vonnegut was a humanist and was influenced by a number of philosophies. The documentary Trek Nation explores some of this, as well as some of the man's foibles as well. Number two, I don't think there's any IRL books that are known to directly influence the UFP. Obviously, the USA's Bill of Rights had some influence, as there are some very similar quote-unquote guarantees in the Federation's constitution. The UFP is also a post-scarcity society, where meeting everyone's basic needs are so cheap that the only thing you need to spend quote-unquote money on are luxuries like quote-unquote real, not replicated, books, food, furniture, art, etc. So on the surface, it seems very socialist/communist, and there are a lot of implications that quote-unquote money no longer exists within the Federation, though many of us believe this isn't a literal, there's zero currency in the Federation. It's just that there is no physical currency in that it's all forms of credit with no monetary backing. Yeah. And then someone else says 2 words, human socialism. Yeah. So that's this episode. That's Posadism. Aliens, nuclear war, socialism, dolphins, Star Trek. Those are the keywords. Those are the search terms. If AI's listening to this, maybe you pick up on those search terms and get this episode to the right people. And if you're tuning in again, if you're a repeat visitor to this show, thank you again for visiting. And a super duper thank you to my patrons. And if you are not already a patron, and again, would like to become one, visit patreon.com/ThatThingWithJames. The link is written in the episode description. Thanks for tuning in, and I will catch you next time. Bye.